here we are, Katie, Erin, and Jen, for this very special episode. In fact, this is the first of 3 special Brave TV episodes. We thought here as we close out the end of season 2, and we close out the end of a very long second year of living with COVID and all sorts of things that have disrupted our lives, we thought it might be fun and interesting to do a past, present, and future episode for This Is My Brave. So today's episode is all about the past of This Is My Brave. And we're going to be talking about where This Is My Brave started and where it's been all the way up until 2020. So, the reason why we, even are thinking about this is, of course, that the pandemic has given us a big moment to pause, just like everybody else has had a moment to pause. And we've taken that time to really reflect on our organization and where it's been, where it is now, and where it can go in the future. So this is a perfect opportunity for us to do these special episodes. So we'll do this one today and a couple more in the next couple weeks as we close out 2021. So
give
with
people
me today,
behind the scenes. Give people a little, sneak peek behind the scenes, right?
Yes. So of course, with me today is Katie Grana, program manager with This Is My Brave. I'm Erin Gallagher, program manager of This Is My Brave. And of course, Jen Marshall, who is co-founder and executive director of This Is My Brave. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks, Erin.
Thanks, Erin.
So Katie, do you want to get us started?
Yeah. So one of the cool things of behind the scenes stuff is that despite the pandemic, the 3 of us spend a lot of time together talking and traveling, even going to cities that we've been to before or new cities. Stories always come up about This Is My Brave before Erin and I were a part of it, or even just when Jen was starting out. So we want to kind of highlight these stories that we like and think are meaningful to the organization. So typically when we ask Jen how This Is My Brave started, we know how things go, but there's some more information to it. So Jen, what was it like starting This Is My Brave, and what kind of brought you to that point?
Well, I thought I'd share a little bit extra about how we got started, because we all know I met Anne-Marie at a friend's jewelry party, but there was more behind that, because the organization really started out of my wanting to get my story out there, and knowing that even though I felt so alone in my struggle with having gone through postpartum psychosis and having gone through bipolar disorder and the horrible, horrible year of clinical depression, I felt so alone, but I knew there were others out there that had also been going through it. And so I decided I would search for these stories, and I found a lot of them online. I found Heather Coleman online from our very first show, and her story at first was anonymous out there, but I ended up calling her eventually and saying, be in our first show. But before all that, I started being inspired by these people whose stories were out there on the internet, and I thought, if they could write about it and find community, I want to do the same. And I want to put my story out there, because yes, it's nerve-wracking to put your story out there, but I knew that if it could help one person, it would be worth all that risk, of being discriminated upon later or judged later for my illness. And so I started writing anonymously, and I would steal moments to write, like when the kids were sleeping or napping, or late at night, and a couple times a week I'd publish a blog post, and then I would share it online on Facebook mainly, and Twitter, and people would react, and we would comment on each other's blogs. That was when blogging was huge, and people would really respond to each other and get to know each other. And
wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't want you to lose your train of thought, but when you would post things on social media, were you doing it as bipolar mom or as Jennifer Marshall?
So at first, a good question. I'm glad you asked that. At first it was anonymous. So it was just kind of Twitter was my handle was bipolar mom life. So it was just there. And through the site I was using was WordPress. So just through, there were plugins that you could share. And people would do like comment trains. Like if you commented on someone's blog, then they would comment on yours. So, you know, you'd get that visibility. And then it wasn't until I had the opportunity to write publicly that then I would share, you know, on Facebook and be connected to my personal, you know, Facebook.
Got it.
Yeah. So that was a big step too, though, like, because you can write anonymously and then put your name on something on a blog and still feel a little bit of like separation, but then bringing it into your social media is kind of another level of that where people don't. Yeah, that's cool.
So then that was your goal, really. I'm going to blog about this and it's going to inspire hopefully inspire at least one other person. But you then started to get more feedback from more than just one person.
Well, so this is the part of the story that I don't often share. I don't know why. It's not that I'm ashamed of it or anything. It was just kind of a blip in the beginning of This Is My Brave. Was I went to a writers' conference where Cheryl Strayed was supposed to speak. This was like November 2012, I think. And she got sick and she didn't speak, but I learned a lot about writing there and I met some people. And then I saw that she was speaking again in March 2013. And I'm like, ooh, you know, she's all the way out in Seattle, Leavenworth, Seattle in the mountains, but I'm going to go. And it was called the Wild Mountain Memoir Writers Retreat. And it was small. I would guess maybe about 40 people went, 50 maybe. I mean, it was small. So you really got to know the other writers, and she was there and I got to meet her and I brought all my books and she signed them and I sat down and talked to her for a few minutes, and there were other writers teaching workshops. And when I came back from that on the bus, well, I met a woman there who I was rooming with because you were randomly matched up, and she was really inspiring. She had overcome cancer and she was writing, and I thought, this is really cool. And she wanted to start a blog, so I helped her start her blog, and then we kept in touch. And then I also met another woman there who had been writing for a long time, who had a show called Listen to Your Mother. And this show was a stage show across the country that she started in her hometown in Madison, Wisconsin, as a gift to her hometown, stories about motherhood told on stage. And with her show, it kind of just organically grew to other cities. And I met her at the conference on the bus back to the airport. We talked the whole time, but I hadn't yet publicly came out with my story. And I don't remember how many weeks later, it might've been actually guys, now I'm just remembering it right now, at the conference, the first day of the conference before it even kicked off, the woman, the editor from What to Expect When You're Expecting, wrote me and said, I found your blog. I love what you're writing about. We want to put a column out about a mom with mental illness. Will you write? And I said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I'm like contemplating it the whole time I'm at this conference. And then when I got back, I really set out to put my name on my writing and put my name on my story. And that's when the outpouring of support came. And my mom had said to me, why do you have to put your name on it? Like, why do you have to air all that out? And I said, but she said, what if one of the parents at the kids' preschool finds out and they don't let their kids play with your kids at your house? And I said, Mom, that's the exact reason I want to do this, because we're just people, we're human, we have these different conditions, and it's okay to live with it and talk about it. And so, I moved past that. And when I opened up about my story, my parents really didn't want me to be open, as they mentioned when they're interviewed in the documentary. But it took them a little bit to come around. And then one of the moms at the preschool, just the first time the story was out, she came up to me at pickup and just hugged me and said, thank you so much. And she's become one of my closest friends. And, her family has, within the family, everybody has someone they know and love. And so then that same summer, so that was 2013, the spring of 2013, by June, July, the woman I met at the conference came to DC And she lived out in Washington. She came to DC. We started we went to Mary Lee Part's show, one woman show at the Fringe Festival in DC. And Mary had her story, and the song she sang in the very first show was from that one woman show. And her story was about living with bipolar and it being like a boyfriend that would, harm her, So she told the story through song, like a catamaran. What am I looking for? What word am I looking for? Cabaret. Sorry,
yeah.
cabaret.
Okay.
I almost said catamaran. No, cabaret show. It was like cabaret style. So she'd sing a little bit, then she'd talk, then she'd sing a little bit and talk. So this woman and I went to the show, and afterwards we're at a bar, and literally you hear the story about people having a business idea and they write it on a napkin. We got a napkin at this bar. We're sitting there.
So wait, you and this lady from Washington
Yes.
State.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're writing down this idea, and we're like, what if we did a show? I was like, I've always thought, and it wasn't even that woman that came up with the idea. It was my mother-in-law, because I had taken her to that show about motherhood the year before. And she had said, Jen, you could do a show about like this, but about mental health. And I'm like, oh, I can't steal her idea. But that night we wrote out the idea of what would this look like? And we came up with a name somehow, Don't Call Me Crazy, because it's like,
Yeah.
but it just, thankfully, we had a failure there. Like we tried to work on it for 2 months, and we put out the group on Facebook as Don't Call Me Crazy, the show. And right away, people started liking it and sharing it. And we bought the business license, we bought the website, and she was here a few days, and then she went back, and we had creative differences, and we just kept butting heads left and right. And I finally said, I can't do this anymore. Like, it's not working. And we broke up. And I was like, gosh, I'm going to have to start this all over again. And I already had a logo that we loved. But I just kept going. And then as fate would have it, I met Anne-Marie at our friend Kieran's jewelry party. And I said, I have this idea and I really want to do this, but I need help. Will you help me? And
that was like October, November then.
So that was August 2013.
Okay. Sorry.
It was August. And what happened was from there was I said, we're going to put this on Kickstarter and we're going to make it big. And we kind of fleshed out what we would need. I'm assuming by then we had called a theater to get general rates and see what it would cost. And we had a little budget that had like 5 or 6 little items. And one of them, the big cost was the theater. And we put it on Kickstarter, and you guys have seen some of the original Kickstarter videos, I think. They're still, we could link them in the show notes.
Let's do it. I'm going to write that down.
But they were us just getting on camera and saying.
And weren't you like recording them in Anne-Marie's living room? Like
in her home office upstairs where she used to work. She used to work from home. And so it was propping a camera up on a ladder. And sometimes we'd get her son to press the play button when we were both behind the camera. But we figured it out as we went.
Wait a second. So then when did you switch names and how did you come up with This Is My Brave?
So we switched names. It was probably like right when I met her. I was like, we had a name, but now, I got to start over. And my mom and dad's friends from college, Richie and Fran is just very creative. And she said, because there was always the Brave thing, because when I had first started writing publicly and tweeted my story out to Sarah Bareilles that spring when Brave was really popular, she retweeted me. So I kept coming back to the word Brave, but I didn't know how to make it into a name. And Fran said, well, Jen, this is my Brave. Just call it, because this is it. This is my Brave. And I was like, wow, okay, let's go with it. And it stuck. So Fran helped me.
Thanks, Fran.
Yeah. Seriously. And at this point, looking back on, well, there are a lot of things and like books and sayings and stuff of like, don't call me crazy. And so, but now I think even with how important mental health is and how many more people are outspoken about it, I think the name of being This Is My Brave is a lot more.
Well, you know what else? I don't know if
Positive.
you've ever thought of that, but you know, like an old teacher trick is like if you want to change the classroom's behavior, you speak in the positive, not in the negative. So if you say don't talk, the only thing they hear is talk. And so if you say please be quiet or please lower your voices, then lower your voices or quiet are the things that they take away. So the takeaway in this is brave instead of crazy, which you were trying to play on crazy and put a different spin on it, but still it I think it evokes something in people's minds, which I think often is negative. It's
I
time to
agree with
flip
you.
that, right? But
It's having that don't in front of it really enforces the negative side of it. I think.
right.
Yeah.
This is that, like, this is something to aspire to
Mhm.
instead of something to just that we're tripping over and having to re-explain all the time, you know?
Well,
Nobody's going to question what brave is, and we don't have to keep redefining it. It's the same.
right. And we love a good play on words. So
Mhm.
thank you, Jen, for not having us play on
Good.
crazy all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have stuck. Like we
No,
couldn't be like, we always
probably
say,
wouldn't have.
Right.
Brave the storm wouldn't be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing your crazy instead of
Right.
for sharing your brave. Like I'm a
Can you
fan.
imagine when people say,
Wow.
my name's Erin and this is my crazy? No.
Oh, that doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Doesn't work.
Good job. Good job, Fran.
Yeah. Thank you, Fran. I'll write her a thank you note.
We will
Yeah.
we will tag her in the comments.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Tagging Fran at Fran in the comments.
Perfect.
Okay. So then so in the first show, you've already mentioned Heather Coleman, who you
Mhm.
met when you were writing, because she was also writing.
Yeah.
And so you just
I
reached
don't
out to her and said,
know.
I think I'm going to do this thing.
I don't know if she would, I don't think she would necessarily was writing. What happened was Heather had been in the middle of the postpartum psychosis, driving home from work on her maternity leave, had an episode happen. She thought she needed to be baptized in the Potomac River. She pulled over, undressed, went towards the river, and Good Samaritans stopped their car to help her. I mean, it was in the middle of rush hour traffic. And so she wrote this post. And I do believe the first time she wrote about it was anonymous, but she then came out publicly with her story. But on Postpartum Progress, which was a nonprofit trying to raise awareness for postpartum issues, and was trying to find the Good Samaritans that helped her. And she had reviewed the 911 tapes, and I don't know that she ever found them, but it was so brave. And I can't even remember how. I might have written to the head of Postpartum Progress to say, this woman's story really touched me. Like, I've also had PPP and I want to talk to her. Can I reach out to her? And they gave me her email address. And then we ended up, because we were both in the DC area too. And so I remember I was sitting in the other room up here in my house talking to her on the phone. I remember like being so just impressed with her courage and that she needed to tell her story on our stage as part of the first show. And she said yes.
Mhm.
So that was really cool. And one of the other people I handpicked for the first show was Kevin Early, who his dad, Pete Early, is a good friend and a writer. And I had been in a support group with Kevin a couple years prior, and just knew that he had a talent for music and art. And that's what this show was going to be all about. It was going to be artistic, storytelling. And so I called Kevin and said, hey, I'm doing this show. Will you do a rap song? And he's like, yeah. So it was really
So I have
cool.
a question about the artistic expression piece. I mean, are you a theater person? Is that your background?
No.
So the importance of including the creative arts was
So that came about just because of the stereotype that you hear, like, oh, those people with mental illness are so creative. And, I will say, I think it's fairly true.
Yeah.
I've seen in my experience, and I definitely think of myself as a creative person. I love writing and reading and reading creative artists, and I love painting. And
oh, I have
so,
paint. Here's Jen's painting.
Yeah, I have a
Impressive,
few.
Christmas
right?
card.
Mhm.
Yes.
That one.
That's what?
I do a lot of copying other artists because I
Yeah,
get
that's how you
inspired.
start. That's how you
Yeah.
start.
But
Yeah.
and just this weekend I was inspired by this artist, Morgan Harper Nichols, I think her name is, and my therapist told me about her, and I looked her up, and she does this technique with acrylic paint, but I did it with watercolor, and it came out totally different, but it was just fun, and she really inspired me to go on your own and just have fun and just do whatever. And because I always try to follow like a tutorial or whatever, but it is really fun to just do your own thing sometimes.
Yeah.
I think just in art, it's imitation is a way to like kind of start to loosen things up, and then you start to you see inspiration, like it kind of gets your wheels
Juices
turning.
flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Anne Marie was your partner and co-founder. And so what were the gifts that she brought to this organization? Like what can you attribute to her specifically?
Oh, Anne-Marie was the voice of reason a lot of times. I'd be like, we're going to go big. We're going to do this. She's like, whoa, 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 let's slow down a minute. Let's do one thing at a time. And so she really helped rein me in when I was being a little too ambitious, but I could never have gotten off the ground if I wouldn't have met her. I don't know what would have happened. And I don't like to think about that. It's just, she's huge part of how This Is My Brave started. And she made me laugh all the time. And I'd always have to pull her in front of the camera because she didn't like to be out there in front of the camera. But I needed people to know that it wasn't just me, this never was just me. It might have started with me writing and wanting to put my story out there, but if I never would have found her, if I wouldn't have had these other people who came forward, if I wouldn't have had you guys, like we wouldn't be where we are right now. One person can't do it. So yeah, and I miss her so much. I think about her all the time, and she was a gift.
We're sorry we never met her. We see, obviously, we've gotten to see her appearances in shows, and just she brings a lot of wisdom to the topic. And you know what I think is interesting is in that very first show, when she is talking about meeting you at the jewelry party, I mean, the talking points about the organization in the very first show, you had them down. We're going to use the arts to end stigma and let people know that there is hope. I mean, all of those pieces, she was saying them from the very beginning. That's such clarity. And I think that sometimes ideas come together and then the clarity comes, after you sort through all the pieces. But from the very beginning, all the mission and vision were there, which is, I think, obviously, I speaks to the importance of the work, but also just to the brilliance from the very, very beginning. And like the purpose shined through. And then everything else, I think that also makes a successful organization when you can create mission and vision right out of the chute that everybody can jump on board with. So
Well, it's interesting you say that too, about it being so consistent from the very beginning, because I remember one of the first board meetings we brought in a neighbor of Anne-Marie's who's a consultant, Michelle, and Michelle had said, I see this growing into these these not silos, but like segments of This Is My Brave, like a high school edition, a college edition, men's mental health, an LGBTQ, a workplace, and a veterans show, and we're growing in that direction. Like we've seen that. And so I just think that all good things take time. And I think we've been really consistent. And I think that's why we've been so successful.
Yeah, it's so cool to go back and watch. I love you and Anne-Marie each telling your side of the story in the first show. And because they are so consistent, and I just love the personality types come out in each of you, that you're the dreamer and the go-getter, and Anne Marie's like the, okay, this is really cool, but like, yeah, like let's do this right. Like
Right.
it's just so perfect. But
And
that for
I still remember, I have to jump in with you when you say that, because it was these two sides coming together. And when you are on our YouTube channel and you see that banner image from the first show and we're looking at each other and we're holding hands.
My favorite picture ever. I love photographs because they capture so much. And that picture has so much in that, just the two of you looking at each other.
Well, I'll tell you what we were saying to each other.
Uh-oh.
We were saying, we did it.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
that
Okay,
was the
good.
moment that we looked at each other saying, oh my God, we did it. Like,
Mhm.
and that first show holds such a special place in my heart. Like it was magical. And I can't even describe, but it was, so in the 2015 show the next year in Arlington. And Katie, I'm sorry, I totally
no,
cut
it's
you
okay.
off, but I'm going in a direction.
Yeah.
The 2015 show, one of the women in the show did a painting. Oh my gosh, and I feel terrible. I'm gonna find her name, but I see her face. Did a painting of what the audience looks like when you're up on
It's in your
stage.
office.
Yeah.
Yep, it's in the office on the wall, and it's hearts, are just all the seats of the audience are hearts, and then it's got the word brave like in lights that's up. And it's like, that's what it felt like from the state. And I think that's what it feels like for I hope for every brave storyteller.
Yeah, I love that. I love that painting. But yeah, I was just gonna say that just from the beginning, I love how your stories and like your intros and everything from those pieces haven't aged, or like they've aged well, I guess. That Anne Marie talking about, putting the, oh my gosh, what the ripple
into the lake.
Yes.
It's gonna ripple out.
Yes, like these things that have just, and we say this a lot, like between the three of us, but like, but there's this just like magical force with Brave, in terms of like how it started and like how the three of us have come close, because we each have people that we wish so badly the other ones could have met. And so we kind of have this bond of carrying these special messages forward because of the people that are no longer with us. And it's just this ongoing project and journey that everyone else is a part of that makes it what it is. But, yeah, I'm gonna cry now too.
Why, Katie?
Sorry. It's true. It's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the beginning of Brave was, and it's also crazy, like for me to think back to like when you, Jen, were, to do the 2011, 2012 timeframe. And like, that's when my journey with mental illness was beginning. And like, I was in denial for a long time and didn't understand a lot. So, and also finding a story about postpartum probably wouldn't have impacted me as much as it does now with like bigger picture stuff. But it's funny to think back to that time frame of like where I was in life, where Erin was in life at that time, and where you were, and how all of these things come together. But Erin, what were you going to ask next? Were you going to say something?
I was going to tell you, my whole life, I always thought that I would work in advocacy. And I never really understood how. And sometimes, I worked in nonprofits, all meaningful work. But sometimes I'd stop and I'd remember that I had this sense that I was supposed to be working in advocacy, and I never really understood how. And I'd look around in my life and I'd think, nothing here that I need to be working on. So, I mean, I can tell you that happened at several times in my life where I'd be like, I'm supposed to be in advocacy, but what is it? So,
yeah, that none of us chose this.
Yeah, no. we're in the right place.
Mhm. So I felt
We
the
say
same
all
way.
the time, of course, we hate that we're here. Too bad we can't just be going on with the life we plan for ourselves, because that was a better plan, but this has got really great silver lining, I think.
Yeah. I feel
So sorry about that, but Katie started it. It's her fault.
this is also what happens in our meetings on a regular basis. So I want it to be real. It should is.
Yeah. Well, we also should talk about, I think, Anne-Marie's passing. Can you remind us, Jen, how many years ago did?
Yeah, so it was just 4 years ago recently, and it was something that came about suddenly, and no one ever could have predicted, I don't think, but being able to leave behind this legacy and this organization that she helped found is what keeps loved ones just appreciating everything she's given to us. I mean, it's so hard to keep going after we lose someone we love, but
Can I ask you a really personal question? Was there ever a time where you were like, I mean, how can I keep, or can I keep doing this? I mean, did you ever have that moment?
I did, but thankfully, we were so busy. We kind of skipped over. We went from like 2014 to 2017, but we were so busy with shows in 2017 and 2018 that I had been booked for a bunch of speaking engagements and being traveling for shows that I felt as though I couldn't let people down, and I didn't want to not show up and be there for them when they had given so much to be a part of the organization. And so I remember trying actually to cancel a couple of them, and it wasn't that the people weren't going to let me out of it. It was that they just really wanted me to be there, and so they were just being very gentle, and I stuck with it, and I'm so glad I did, because we're here for a reason. And I definitely think my story and our stories, there's the purpose behind, the pain we go through is to have it come full circle and make it bigger than yourself. And that's why I kept going, because I knew there were people that wanted to keep going, and I wanted to be there for them. And so, yeah.
So that was the beginning, well, midway through the busiest years that Brave has seen, 2017 and 2018, both with about 20 shows. So that's 10 shows a season. And if we really think about a season, just in case folks out there haven't, that's really like 6 weeks generally, right? Like
It
in the
was
spring
quick.
and 6 weeks in the fall, where you have to get 10 shows in. So maybe you had, I don't know, a Sunday and a Thursday every
Yeah,
week.
we had a lot of Sundays and Thursdays, and I'd go from some cities to the next and racked up the frequent flyer miles. But that's part of the best part of This Is My Brave, is to get to go to the city and meet the people who put it on in that town and thank them and connect with them, and then sit in the audience and get to share the highlights on social media. And oh, we cannot wait to get back to the stage. So
It's gonna be something.
we're close.
Yeah.
So then
So
you
in
have your
2018, so same thing, same schedule.
It was wild. Yes. And
And at that point, you needed to get some extra help. So up until that point was just you and Anne-Marie doing this together?
it was, and I'm trying to remember the exact year Lauren came on, and she definitely, for me, I think it was either 2016 or spring 20, I think it was 2016. And she came on initially as an intern, and she was working another job. She was in the hospitality industry, and had recently moved to DC and found us, and we really connected. And I said, hey, I've been doing all the social media myself. Like, will you help and jump in there? And so she took over Instagram and then Facebook. And then soon enough, I was like, hey, do you want to come on full time? And it worked, and she did. And so it was the two of us for a while. And then, yeah, those seasons were really tough. But we got through, and then started hiring consultants to do different things. And that's how we kept growing. And then I found you guys.
So that was 2019.
Yeah.
And that year, I know that we had talked about me coming on board. You were saying, I'm going to be hiring more program managers because, of course, with that number of shows and the vision that you had for expansion into college edition and high school edition, you were going to need extra help. So that's when
so you temped me, for a little bit, and then decided.
I did, yeah.
I think this could work.
Did a little side hustle with you, and that worked out pretty well. So then I said, let's just do it in May. So, and that's about the time that your mom had reached out to you about things that she'd been reading in the local paper in Hershey, Pennsylvania, which is your hometown. So tell us about.
Yeah, my hometown area had lost a couple kids to suicide in the high schools. And, she said, Jen, you got to do something for back home. And so we got in touch with the school, met with the principal, who was a different principal than when I graduated, but said, this is what I do now. Can we? And we all went, and, really they were a little leery, but they let us come in and meet with the kids, and we did networking, and I made several trips there that fall. And we had also at that time gotten the 2 grants to do the college edition, and that took off that fall. And that was our venue into working with younger people. Yeah. Learned a lot.
Then Katie, of course, Lauren had an opportunity to go back to school. And so in the start of summer, she transitioned to her new chapter in her life. And then we were on the search for another program manager, a second one. And
my inbox got full of resumes, and I was slowly going through them. And I think, Katie, you might have emailed me separately and said, I think was it after we met at the DeKalb show?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Because I found This Is My Brave in December of 2018 or January of 2019. I think it was January, because I lost Jason to suicide in 2018, and he was so big in the performing arts and everything. And I was like, literally Googled mental illness and theater, and This Is My Brave pops up. So I contacted you guys.
SEO, good job.
Right. So I contacted you guys immediately and said, I need to bring this to St. Louis. And then I had been working with Lauren, and then Jason's mom, Heather, and I went to a show in DeKalb, Illinois. So I met you guys there, but we were like in and out because it was so beautiful and emotional.
But we had a good 10 minutes or so that we talked, and I got to know you a little bit. And then maybe the week later you emailed and said, because we had the job opening out, maybe a couple weeks later, the job posting came out, and you said, I applied, and I dug back, and yours was the very first application that had come in, and I hadn't seen it because I was like scrolling through, and we interviewed, and it just made sense.
Yeah.
So I remember Jen saying, I got a lot of resumes, but there's this girl, Katie, I think that you're really going to like her. And I was like, we'll see. And here we are.
Right. Well, and then when I first saw, you guys posted on Facebook, like This Is My Brave did that you were hiring. And I was like, no way. and it was DC area, like all of these things that I'm in St. Louis, like all of these things that I was not. And I had been working in sales and had nonprofit experience, but I'd never worked in mental health advocacy before, which was what I wanted to do. And I was like, I'm just going to send in my resume. It's what's it going to hurt? I'm already working with them. I'm going to bring a show to St. Louis. I'm just going to send her my resume and see what happens. And I remember emailing Lauren and saying, oh my gosh, you guys are hiring? Like, do you think I have any chance at this? And she was like, well, I'm actually leaving, so you would be working with Erin. And I was like, hold up. I didn't mean to just email you about taking your spot. And again, like, I don't really know, like at the time, I didn't know the dynamics of anything. And so, but she's like, just email it to Jen, send it to Jen, and I'm sure she'll consider it. And so I did. And then
We were remote before the pandemic.
right. Yeah.
There was that.
Mm-hmm. And then I started in August and hit the ground running with shows.
Yeah, you did.
With traveling to shows. And that was the most fabulous, draining, but in a good way, like all of these things. I mean, being able, like going to Orlando for my first show, meeting you in person as your colleague, Jen, and meeting in Orlando, like all of it is so funny. And then Erin and I didn't even officially meet until we were going to the Hershey show in November.
Yeah.
And then,
You know what else is funny? I know, here's something else. We always did our team calls on a conference line, on a phone line.
So weird that we did that.
Yeah. And then I remember Jen, because we also would meet with the teams that were putting on the shows around the country on a conference line. And I remember Jen saying at a meeting that fall, like, I think our meetings would be more impactful if we did video conferencing. And so I want you to encourage these teams to join you on video calls. And I was like, okay. So I would mention to these teams, they're like, the phone line's fine. Nobody wanted to join the video calls. And even like later, like early 2020, then like I'm meeting with a friend from home, and I was like, let's just Zoom. And she's like, oh, I've never heard of Zoom. I'll give it a try, I guess. And then like later, like at the end of 2020, by the way, I got a Christmas card, and this funny lady from home, she was like, you know, kids did great in school. We all learned how to Zoom. That was 2020 for her. So anyway, it's just funny that we would be trying to get people to join us on video calls, and they'd be like, oh no, that the phone line works fine. And now it's everybody's reality.
Well, and remember, Erin, when we would like, because I would be basically shadowing on all of your calls, and it would be 7 o'clock at night, my time, 8 o'clock at night, your time, or whatever. And we would conference into a call. And then it would just be you and I there for like 10 minutes. Like, I guess no one's showing up tonight.
or you would sit so quietly and like, you'd sit and say nothing. And then at the end be like, bye.
That's true. That's true. I never wanted to interrupt on the call.
Oh, Katie was here. We didn't even know. Oh gosh. Anyway, the good old
literally
days.
Feels like years ago.
I know.
Like a decade ago.
Yeah.
I can't believe
but
that.
Instead it was 2019.
Yeah.
So then we started 2020 kind of early because we had the Napa Valley show, and Christine had called us in. I mean, this is so unusual. She called us in August and said, we want to do another show. And we're like, great, like next August. And she's like, no, February. And we were like, oh, okay, that seems like a short turnaround, but sure. But you know, she's pretty good at what she does. So she swung it and knocked it out of the park. It was great. So we went to Napa Valley in early 2020, February 8th. And
birthday weekend.
Yeah.
Yes, and we were just
Very
having a
perfect.
great old time. We remember we sat, it was beautiful and
Had
sunny.
no idea what was gonna hit us.
Mhm.
Sat at that winery and ate cheese and just
Now,
drank.
for the record,
Oh,
I wasn't on this trip.
I know, Katie, and you're not gonna believe it. One
Katie was at a
night,
college edition show.
I was in
She
that's
Boston.
was
right. That's
running
right. Yeah,
that.
it was
and
It was
beautiful. I'm so,
cold.
we have to go back.
cold, warm. Yes, we
Yeah.
will.
But then Katie was doing college edition. This was the second semester of the college. Can you just remind us, because college edition is a little bit different, how
Right.
that worked?
So college edition started, it was the 2019 to 2020 school year. And they had one cast doing multiple shows. I think altogether, which I literally just asked Allie this the other night and I can't remember. I think they did like 6 or 7 shows throughout the Boston area. So
Some in the fall.
yeah, some in the fall and then some in the spring. And Boston University was the kickoff for spring.
Mhm.
So I went.
And that
met
was like
them.
end of January, right?
No, it was
It's
after
right around Napa. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was like
That
the
week.
week after
That
Napa,
week.
like that
Mhm.
week. And
Right before the pandemic hit, because then it was
Right.
like a few days later, everything shut down.
yeah, I went to Boston University and I think they did one more show before things officially shut down. I think they had one more.
Was it Northeastern?
Or no, Brandeis.
Brandeis, yeah.
Brandeis, I think, was their last one. Because that's the farther one out from like the immediate Boston area. And then I will never forget either when Erin and I are booking flights for NatCon in Austin, and she goes, "Do you think we need to get insurance on these flights?" And I was like, "What?" She goes, coronavirus. And I was like, "Oh no, no way. We don't
She
need."
did say that.
I
She
did.
was like, that's ridiculous.
I
No.
was like, no, because that's when it was on like cruise ships in China. And I was like, oh no, I mean, I know it's a big deal, but like,
Mm,
no way.
you never knew.
Boy, was I wrong.
Didn't get to go to Austin.
Never got to
That
go
was
to-
sad. I was really looking forward to Austin.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. There was a lot that we were looking forward to.
yeah. There's
So
a
it would
lot
have been
of-
Houston, Austin,
You guys would have come to St. Louis,
St.
Louis.
Louis.
Hampton Roads, Virginia,
Yeah.
Iowa City.
Mhm.
All really beautiful theaters, the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
But then we learned how to do this and Zoom.
We got good at Zoom really fast, and then got good at just recording ourselves, getting our lighting
Editing,
right,
got good at editing, got good at
editing.
hiring consultants to help us go live.
Mhm.
Yep.
Coming
And
up with ideas of content that
we
which
came
yeah,
up with
that'll be
Brave
our
the Storm.
second
Brave
special
the
episode,
Storm.
hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
Mhm.
That
And
was
you know,
actually-
someday maybe we'll bring back coloring and coffee because that was pretty popular.
that wasn't terrible. I really liked that.
I did too.
It's a calm way
just,
to start your day.
That was Instagram, right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we started going live on Instagram, which we didn't do very often.
Right. I
Yeah.
never knew how to do it. Natasha with our social media team was like, Katie, you don't have to like wait for answers. Like you just keep talking. And I was like, oh, I don't know.
I remember one time I was live on Instagram and I started coughing, and that I was like, oh gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I'm coughing. And so the next time we saw Natasha in a meeting, she was like, I really liked it. It's very authentic. That's how this works on Instagram Live. You don't have to be perfect. It's just people like just real.
Just go with
interact-
it. Yeah.
Okay. I had no idea that was going to add value. So
Yeah, we've come a long way. When I look at the very first show, I could never have imagined this type of growth, and the people I've met along the way are just some of the most caring,
yeah,
creative, and passionate people you'd ever meet.
the Brave community is really special.
It's very special.
So I don't think I've ever met anyone in the community who's off-putting. I mean, I think there's warmth and empathy, and also incredible dedication to this mission. Like once you're in, you're in. Nobody's saying, not for me. I did it. That's fine. Maybe a few say that, but most people, if I call up an alumni, I mean, the answer is always, I will do whatever you need. Just tell me what. And often it's like, where can I plug in? Like, what's coming up that I can help with? I mean, it's really just an incredible group of people. And it's, so it still just always gets me that, you know, whenever you start a new show and the teams are like, how will we get people to come out for the show? I'm like, it just,
you know what I say? I say, trust the process.
Yeah.
Because I remember too, Anne-Marie and I, when we started the first year, we thought, how are we ever going to find these people? Are they going to show up? And a couple, like I said, I handpicked a couple because I knew they had to be in it. But the majority of them showed up at the library to tell their story. And we said, you're in, let's do this together. And that's how it happens every time, which is pretty incredible to watch.
It's really incredible.
It is. And there's no, no one's a stranger in the Brave community. If anyone needs help with anything or whether, and I mean, people don't, it's not much like monetary assistance. So it happens every now and then, which, you know, if people need something, they need something, you're more than welcome to ask for it. But oftentimes it's just advice or support or
words of encouragement.
Of what people have gone through. And watching cast members from 2014 connect with cast members from 2019 and knowing then that there are these relationships going on and things, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And even me being brand new to Brave and jumping into the show scene right away and showing up at places, I was always welcome with open arms, whether it was by producers of shows or even alumni, like alumni, especially that would show up to the Boston College Edition shows. And I was at so many of those, but like Amy T was at the first one at Leslie, and Beth Stark showed up to the one at, I believe it was Northeastern. And these people that I'd heard their names before, but I did not know them, just embraced me and said, what can I do to help? I'm here to help. And I was like, can you hand out playbills? Like, I need to check. They're like, yes, give me all of the playbills. Like, there's so, it's incredible.
Yeah.
This extended family that will always have your back, which is so cool.
Wow.
So did you ever envision this?
Yeah.
Could you have envisioned, I mean, you envisioned people standing on a stage, but all of that extra.
All the extra, I didn't. I had no idea what was in store for us. But like Katie
that's the amazing thing about, I think, risk taking is we imagine, like we have pretty vivid imaginations when it comes to how it might fail.
Yep.
We can always think of the 27 million possibilities. But what we don't imagine is we can never imagine all the ways that it succeeds beyond our, because it's just beyond our wildest imagination. There's just, it brings so many surprises. And that's the amazing thing.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, this has been really fun to reflect back on how far we've come. And I'm looking forward to our other 2 episodes to dive into. 2 more
episodes to come. This has been our first of 3 special episodes. This is the one we've used to reflect on the past. The next one we'll talk about the present. And our 3rd and final special episode will be about the future of This Is My Brave. So thanks for coming today, guys.
I had so much fun.
Let's just make this our work day all the time. We'll just kind of live stream us chatting.
Live stream all the time.
Tune in at any time. The conversation's great.
We never know what we'll talk about.
Don't forget to fill up your water bottle.
Also, I feel like we should encourage people, like, to sit down and watch this as a Zoom might be like, oh, it's an hour, because we just talked for an hour.
Yeah.
But if everybody could just tune it in like a podcast and go for a walk or something, that's how I enjoy these conversations. So maybe we'll say that on our preview. And I took notes on show notes, so we'll add those in too.
Perfect. You're such a good note taker.
Yeah, that's my specialty. All right. Well,
All right.
thanks everybody.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Until next time.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.